Greetings, time travelers. Today we're delving into the military tactics employed by the indigenous peoples of North America. But first, grab your bows and arrows. Get ready to saddle up a wild horse. Now hit that like button, and let's dive straight into the video. Throughout centuries, the bold spirit of Native Americans resonated strongly through their mastery of military maneuvers. A choreography of agility and bravery echoing across prairies and mountain ranges. Their strategies, forged in the crucible of survival, not only challenged, but also reshaped the paths of European colonizers, demanding reluctant respect and assimilation of these combat techniques. Heroes like Pontiac and Geronimo, in their fierce resistance, intertwined their fates with the eternal pantheon of military history, creating a legacy of cunning and perseverance that endures to this day. The indigenous communities of North America and their methods of combat represent a fascinating chapter in military history. Have you ever delved into the guerrilla tactics employed by Native Americans? These folks often found themselves in conflicts, whether against each other, against colonizers, or even in occasional alliances with Europeans. The foundation of their war tactics revolved around survival, using nighttime ambushes and mastering the art of surprise attacks, known as the hit-and-run tactic. They were masters of guerrilla strategies. Direct confrontations and prolonged battles weren't uncommon. However, the indigenous military structure favored individualism, promoting a more scattered and spontaneous approach on the battlefield. Once the fights began, each warrior's independence prevailed. Although there was a certain level of organizational structure among native groups, this tactical flexibility was essential for the success of their military operations. Typically, there was a general tactical scheme, leaving room for improvisation, where the commander guided the fighters, stressing the importance of flexibility on the battlefield. Remember the saying from a famous German general? "No plan survives first contact with the enemy." It was basically with this principle in mind that they operated. In outdoor confrontations, inventiveness was crucial. Communication methods ranged from using flags, gestures, body-produced sounds, bugle calls, to reflecting messages off mirrors. Strategies included issuing deceptive signals to disorient the opponent and rewarding warriors who managed to hit an adversary in quick raids on camps and settlements. Native armies, on the other hand, were notably well-equipped and skilled in close combat, adeptly handling spears, stone axes, and arrows, the latter often launched ablaze. The use of poison on arrowheads was rare, but it happened occasionally. Additionally, several tribes adopted the domestication and riding of horses in their attack and retreat strategies, representing one of the main tactical advantages of native peoples over Europeans in the pre-colonial period. Enemy adoption. A rather unique practice among certain tribes of that time involved adopting captured enemies in combat to replace relatives who had perished. Yep, it's true. Tribes like the Apache, Comanches, Wichita, and Kiowa, located in the southern and southwestern regions of the United States, had the habit of capturing survivors from clashes and integrating them into their communities as if they were family members. There are narratives of historical figures who managed to escape this alarming reality and tell their stories. However, it was common for these captives to remain in captivity for the rest of their lives. Throughout history, many civilizations practiced kidnapping survivors during their conquests. However, what sets this conduct apart among native peoples of the southern United States is that captives weren't automatically relegated to an inferior status, and there were no prejudices based on gender, age, or ethnicity. The captives weren't always mistreated in the communities. Most faced lives marked by adversity, with reduced life expectancies due to diseases. However, adopted children often grew up and integrated into the new culture. There are also documented cases of women receiving dignified treatment, equivalent to that of other wives in the tribe. Britt Johnson, an African-American cowboy born into slavery, is a notable example, having rescued his wife and children from the Kiowa tribe, negotiating their freedom in exchange for valuable items. Over the years, several rescue missions were organized, both by Europeans and by the indigenous peoples themselves. In certain situations, the sale of captured people as slaves did indeed occur, although it wasn't a common or exclusive method of warfare among Native American peoples. About 30% of Apaches, Comanches, and Kiowas have ancestors who were captured. The Iroquois, known for their severity towards adversaries, occupied the vast area of the Great Lakes in North America, spanning the northeast United States and parts of Canada. This group, initially nomadic, formed a powerful confederation. Their methods of combat included torture, scalping, and burning enemies alive, with scalping acting as a symbol of domination. Scalps, as war trophies, were displayed in villages, marking the end of an honorable battle. While tradition justified the collection of scalps from adversaries, there are records that items made from human skin, like belts and caps, were traded by Native American peoples in the northern United States. Regarding mourning wars, the Iroquois introduced this concept, where capturing an individual from an enemy tribe to replace a family member lost in combat was a common practice. This methodology was adopted by various Iroquois tribes as a strategy for maintenance and defense against European colonization, differing from the practices of indigenous peoples in the South and Southwest, who integrated prisoners of war into their populations to balance their numbers. For the Iroquois, losing warriors in battle was seen as a weakening of the community's spiritual power. However, there was a more pragmatic reason behind this grim exchange: the purpose of preserving or even improving the human contingent available for conflict. Before being accepted, prisoners captured by the Iroquois underwent tests to determine their potential usefulness. It was common to subject these individuals to acts of torture and exposure to fire as a way to gauge their physical resilience. Those who showed weakness were eliminated through rituals. The ability to endure intense pain was highly valued among them. While the exact reasons for the extermination of those deemed weak remain uncertain, especially with such brutality, this aspect is often used by historians to suggest that such conflicts also had a component of revenge. In Iroquois society, the idea that there was beauty or honor in dying in combat was strange. It was considered prudent and even brave to retreat in adverse situations to save one's own life. If a group member was injured, or if the situation became untenable, it was expected that the others would withdraw to ensure their safety. As for warriors who lost their lives in battle, their bodies were not recovered or buried by the communities because there was a belief that their souls would become tormented spirits. The lack of efforts to replace those who had been lost diminished the status of the family or individual involved in the community. Additionally, men who failed to meet expectations of participation in hunts, a highly valued responsibility, faced the risk of being excluded from marriage for the rest of their lives. These guidelines were established by women, who held control over administrative and strategic decisions within Iroquois communities. History is marked by figures of prominence and strategic mastery among the indigenous peoples of America. Among these figures stands out the leader Pontiac, renowned for his opposition to British presence in the Great Lakes territories during the conflict known as Pontiac's War, set in the context of the French and Indian War. Pontiac, though recognized as a member of the Ottawa tribe, carries an enigma regarding his lineage. Due to the scarcity of precise information about his origin and life journey, the hypothesis persists that Pontiac could have been a kidnapped child, later integrated into the Ottawa tribe. Regarding the French and Indian War, which occurred in the second half of the 18th century in North America, it is important to note that despite the name, the conflict was not limited to a struggle between indigenous peoples and the French. In fact, this period was characterized by a fight for territory involving the French and British in their American colonies, with various indigenous nations forming alliances with one side or the other involved in the conflict. Interestingly, the winner and future controller of the territory lent their name to the conflict. This clash occurred in the context of the 7 Years' War, a vast dispute that spread across continents where Europeans had a presence. The involvement of indigenous peoples in this confrontation was notable, with entire communities maintaining their loyalty to one of the factions until the conclusion of the war. However, the perception persists that native peoples often broke agreements with European colonizers. The idea of sacrificing themselves for colonial interests was unthinkable for indigenous peoples. Thus, desertions and acts of betrayal and isolation were common. Forming alliances with indigenous peoples offers a crucial benefit. They face a battle with nothing to lose, a common dynamic in historical and contemporary conflicts. Even if a dominant nation has superior military and naval forces, its soldiers are paid professionals on a mission. While many of these military personnel may be deeply committed to the cause, and willing to sacrifice for a better future for their nation, Indigenous people fight with the urgency of defending their home and family. This determination to protect their territory often prevails over the organized military power of adversaries. Notable cases include the Vietnam War and conflicts in the Middle East. Native groups, outmatched in resources, resorted to guerrilla tactics, close combat, and alliances with enemies of their adversaries. Curious about these combat strategies of Native American peoples? If you're a fan of Old West stories, share in the comments with the hashtag #OldWest for more intriguing content. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our updates. Until the next video, peace and good.